Welcome back, 1H, to your second week of Drama Online with me, Miss Farrell. So this session is pretty short, but of course, I make the sessions short so you'll have the rest of the hour to do the quiz or whatever activity I leave for you in that particular week. Um, so this week and every week, really, I want you to take notes. I really want you to get out your notebooks, get out a pen or a pencil or whatever you want to take notes with, and take note of what I'm going to say because these things can be a little bit confusing if you just try to pick them up by learning them from listening. And of course, you're going to have your notes to review when you're preparing for your quiz and going forward with preparing for end of terms and all that jazz. Um, Also, this topic is sort of in the textbook from pages 53 to page 68. So I would recommend that you go and have a look at the other information that is in the textbook as well. So today we are going to be looking at the tools of an actor. So if you think about the tools of a doctor, they might have a stethoscope, they might have a thermometer, and so on. If you think about the tools of a carpenter, they might have a hammer, they might have nails, they might have a drill, they might have um, things that they would need to build something. So, of course, as an actor, we're talking about building a performance. So, we're going to be looking at film actors as well as theater actors in general. But just thinking about what does an actor absolutely need in order to give a performance, and thinking about how a performance is really delivering a message for an audience. Without an audience, there is no performance. So we're thinking about what we need to deliver that message effectively so that people can receive it from the viewer's perspective. So, what kind of tools are we talking about? There are two main tools, really. It's quite simple. We're looking at the body and the voice. What brings them together is the mind, but we are focusing mainly on the tools. If an actor needs to perform for something, at least they need a body and they need a voice. However, not all performances use the body. We have radio drama or digital animation, things like that. So if you think about movies like The Lion King, if you think about Aladdin, if you think about Cinderella, Tangled, any of these movies that are not real life people acting on the screen, but they're animations, you need the voice for that. And we're going to watch a video in a little while. So you see kind of the combination between voice and body where that is concerned. And not all performances use the voice either. So we have dance. Of course, there are some dance performances that do use voice, but in this particular instance, we're talking about pure dance, where it's literally just the body alone that's moving. And then you also have mimes. So the thing about when you have a performance that does not use your voice, it's that the body then is the carrier of the message. So the body needs to be more prominent, stronger, and kind of overcompensate for that lack of voice. So the body is kind of like a voice in itself. And the same would apply for performances that use the voice instead of the body. So the voice needs to express all the things that you would have expressed with your body as well. So that a person who is listening to it can imagine bodies moving in space. Or if they're watching a performance that has no voice, they can imagine how it would sound. So if you have someone who's deaf and they are looking at your performance with no voice, then they should be able to completely understand what is going on just by seeing, and vice versa with someone who is blind and they're listening to a performance that only has the voice. So we are going to spend today's session mainly talking about voice, not the soca star. We are going to talk about the voice in performance. So the body is more or less straightforward. but we're going to really look at the mechanics of how sound is produced and how actors use their voice to bring across effective performances. So I just want to pause here for a moment to look at a video actually of some animated some voice actors who are in animated films, and they're showing you the behind the scenes of them acting out the voices that you see on screen.
To the prestigious Palms District. Hi. Surf's up, you guys.
Deep breath.
Welcome to the Infinity Acceptance Group. I am Matilda.
You're gonna have a blast. I'm really fun.
Excuse me. Party foul. That is simply unreal.
Not working.
I am a pig. Greetings from my world, the world of the pigs.
What do we do now? Welcome to our new friends, the pigs!
Picture! Group picture!
Spoiler alert!
Let her go, boys! Yeehaw!
Looks like you're gonna be okay. I want to be an engineer. And my floof? I love red. And
Great. So very interesting thing that you would notice about that is that even though it's only their voices that are going to be on in the movie, you see that they are still using facial expressions. They are still using gestures. So they're using their hands to speak, and that is because the voice and the body are more or less one in the same. So in order to totally express yourself, you're still going to need to naturally use your hands or naturally use your body to say things. So yeah, that just goes to show that even though the body may not be a pivotal part of the performance, it's still they're still linked. We cannot disconnect them from each other. So things like body language and hand gestures help us to communicate in real life. So that is how you're also going to help to build a realistic or an effective portrayal on screen as well. So voice is the sound that we produce when speaking. And the voice, as we said, is an instrument for verbal communication through speech. So speech will consist of words, and whereas sound will be sounds that are not necessarily words. So we're talking about oohs or ahs or screams or groans or things like that. Even a stoops. A stoops is a sound, but it's not necessarily a word. And these are all parts of voice. And it's combined with diction to communicate well. So you can have a voice, but if it's not clear, then you won't carry that message across to the audience effectively. So diction is using consonant and vowel sounds to ensure that what you're saying can be heard correctly, so that you're not speaking in a muddled tone, you're not mumbling your words, so that we understand you have clear diction. That means that your consonants and your vowel sounds are clear. And of course, verbal communication is one of the most common ways that we connect with each other as people who have voices. And this is why in performances we will have microphones, because sometimes the hall is too big or the person's voice is too small to reach everybody in the hall. But because verbal communication is so very important, you'll find that we have microphones and set up microphones all over so that we can hear each and every part of the performance. And as I said, as the voice is an instrument, actors and singers particularly spend a lot of time training their voices in order to not just deliver effective performances, to be audible. So audible, of course, being the word for being able to be heard, but also so that their voice will be strong, their voice muscles will be strong in the same way that a swimmer will train so that their body will be strong and they'll be able to swim for years and years and win competitions. The same goes for voice training for actors and singers in particular. So voice sounds are characterized by, and this is from the textbook, volume, which we know refers to how loud or how soft something is, a sound is. Pitch, which is the height and depth, which could be me speaking as highly as this, or speaking in a very low voice like a man. Tone is where you change your pitch. So tone, which we will look at in the next slide a little bit again. Tone will reflect emotion. So it will use pitch to reflect emotion. Pace has to do with how fast or how slowly you speak, and that also will have to do with pauses, whether it's dramatic pauses and pauses and breaks. And then inflection is emphasis. So if you think about you saying, do you hear that? Or if you say, did you hear that? Or if you think to say, did you hear that? These things are different. So you put the inflection in a different part of the sentence, which will give it different emphasis, different meaning, depending on where you put it. So an accent. So all of these are things that you need to effectively portray a character. So an accent will be particular to a region or an individual. So you will have a Trinidadian accent, you'll have a Barbadian accent, a Guyanese accent, an American accent, a British accent, and then of course you could break it down because not everybody in Trinidad speaks the same way. So you might have a West Moorings accent, or you might have a San Fernando accent, or an Arima accent. A Tobago accent even is different from Trinidadian accent. And sometimes it also has to do with your ethnicity and your social class. So a lot of time, East Indian people and Afro-Trinidadian people don't necessarily speak the same way. And also an East Indian person from Barrackpore may not speak the same way as an East Indian person from Siparia, for instance. So they're all different things that kind of come together to determine how somebody's accent sounds, and it may be a local accent or a foreign accent. So of course, volume, which would be between a whisper and a shout, and then in order to get our voices to be heard because as we said, a performance is delivering a message, and if you cannot deliver that message, then it's an ineffective performance. So projection is the name of the technique that you will utilize to ensure that your voice can be heard. So think about any time when you sat down and listened to a speech, or you were in church and somebody went up and read, and you could not hear anything that they were saying, and it sort of spoils the experience. What they needed to do was to project, so that everybody can hear them even through the mic. And in theater, there's something called a stage whisper, which is where you more or less pretend to whisper. So you'll be speaking in a whispering tone, but you will whisper then loud enough for the audience to hear. So if I speak like this, I am whispering, but you can hear all of my words because it's a loud, audible whisper. So that is what a stage whisper is. And then clarity, of course, as I said. So if you're delivering a message and it's not clear, then it's an ineffective message. So clarity has to do with diction, as we just discussed,
which is how well the words are pronounced, how well formed the consonants and vowels are, as well as your tone. So if your tone is a bit too dismal, then that could kind of cloud the message. If your tone is if you're constantly screaming or weeping or any sort of extreme, then it can distract from the message. So of course, pace also has to do with clarity. So putting pauses in, because if I read out this entire French sentence and I said diction means speech is clearly heard and understood, it has to do with your pronunciation and tone. Your pace can also affect your clarity as well as pauses and phrases once you speak quickly, but if you can speak. So if I spoke like that, then you would not understand anything that I was saying. So I have to put in pauses, and pauses will indicate what the phrasing is. So that would be how long and how short sentences and segments are. This is so that things would be easier understood. So you separate them so people can hear and follow and pay attention to everything that you say. So yes, as the slide says, you can speak quickly, but if you speak quickly and with good diction, then you can be clearly understood. And one thing to note is that diction really has nothing to do with the type of language that is being spoken, because you can speak regular Trini informal language as you would speak to your friends. It doesn't mean that you need to put on an accent, or it does not mean that you need to speak standard English. All it means is that you need to pronounce your words properly. So if I say, boy, I went down the road the other day, then I can have good diction in saying that once I pronounce all the words so that people can hear each of the words. If I say, boy, I went down the road the other day, then it's totally different. So diction has nothing to do with standard English or non-standard English or proper English in inverted commas. And then tone is how your voice reflects things that are not necessarily in the words. So if I say, well, I guess, then my tone indicates that I might be exasperated or frustrated or something like that. So the words could mean anything. I could say, well, I guess, and then I sound excited. So it's really just the tone is what communicates more than what the words say. It's what's underneath the words. That is what the tone brings to a performance, as well as the mood. So the main part of our class today, we're going to be looking at how the voice works. So there are three main parts of the human voice production system. We have the lungs, and their role is to pump the air. We have the vocal cords. The role is to turn the air into sound. And then lastly, we have the articulators, which clarify the sounds. So again, we have the lungs, the vocal cords, and the articulators. The air is pumped, the air is then turned into sound, and then the sounds are clarified into words or sounds. So if we pay attention, my little animated thing in the back there is moving, and I will explain why it's moving in a second. So voice itself is breath. Voice always begins with breath. So the first step is that air will enter your body. You will inhale through your nose or your mouth, and your diaphragm, which we'll see in a diagram in the next slide. The diagram is a thin sheet of muscle that is right at the base of your ribs, and it separates your lungs from the other organs in your chest cavity. So it's just literally just a thin sheet of muscle, and its job is to help the lungs, to create space for the lungs to expand and have air. Right, so the air enters through your nose or your mouth, it goes into your lungs. And then, so leading to your lungs, there's a tube called the windpipe or the trachea. And at the top of this tube is the voice box, which is the larynx, where your vocal cords are like elastic bands. So this is what is in the little moving diagram that is right above this text. That thing that you see opening and closing, these are the vocal cords. This here is the larynx, that's the voice box, which is at the top of the windpipe, which is the trachea that leads down into your lungs. So when you are quiet, when you have nothing to say, these muscles are open and they are relaxed, and they allow your breath to pass through freely with no blockage, no inhibition or anything. But when you want to talk, then these muscles, your
vocal cords, or your vocal sheets as it's sometimes called, they activate. And what happens is that the air that is coming out of your lungs has a smaller space to pass through. Now, because this space is smaller, the air will then cause these muscles, your vocal cords, to vibrate. Now, all sound is vibration. So the sound from these vibrations, so the vocal cords are now moving very quickly. So the sound from these vibrations will come up and out. So the sound from these vibrations will come up and out through your throat, your nose, and your mouth. So these are the things in your face. These are the resonators. These are where they have spaces in your face. So what happens is that it takes the sound and makes it bigger, makes it larger. It amplifies the sound in your throat, your nose, and your mouth. So yes, so when the sound reaches there, it's much louder than it is at the voice box alone. So the job of your diaphragm is actually to help this entire process. And this is why we have to learn, why actors have to learn to use their diaphragm when they're speaking instead of their throat or their vocal cords, so that these parts don't get damaged. And it's very interesting that both lungs, if you stretch out both of your lungs completely, they are actually the size of a tennis court. So the diaphragm is what is helping the lungs do what they have to do so that they can push out enough air to make sounds that are audible. Right, so this is the diagram of the voice system. So the larynx is another word for the throat. So that is the back of the throat. The diaphragm, as we just identified, is that thin sheet of muscle that is just at the bottom of your lungs. Bronchus, that's just a part of the lungs. That's where the air enters. The trachea is another word for the windpipe, as you can guess. That's where the wind, how the air gets down into the lungs. And then your nose is part of your sinuses. That chant that resonates the sound. So resonators amplify and change the sound, as I said. So depending on where you place the sound, and this is how singers train, depending on whether you place the sound in your nose, then if your nose is your resonator, then it's going to have a nasal sound. And then so the size and shape of everybody's resonators are different, and that's why everybody has a different voice. So some people, their nasal cavity might be bigger, so they'll have a more nasal sounding voice. Or some people, their throat might be a little bit broader, so they might have a deeper voice. So projection, as we said a little bit earlier, is the technique that you employ where you use your diaphragm, because your diaphragm supports your lungs. It supports all the airflow. So when you really use your diaphragm, it causes more air to be able to be held in your body, and the more air you have, the more breath you will have, and the more sound you'll be able to produce. Because as we said, breath and sound and voice are one and the same. And then articulation then is when the articulators, which are your teeth, your tongue, your lips, and your jaw, so just really at the front of the face, shape sounds into words. So there are different articulators that will work for different sounds. So for instance, if you think about the letters of the alphabet, if you think A, that's more of your teeth articulating. B, that's your lips. C, that's your tongue. D, that's more of your tongue and your teeth, I would say. E, that's, I think your lips. F, that's your lips again. So as I said, the sound will just be produced, and you could make anything of the sound that is produced at your voice box. But the articulators, which are at the front of the face, the easy way to remember it is the tip of the tongue, the teeth, and the lips. The tip of the tongue, the teeth, and the lips. These are what form the words into they form the sounds, into different words. So resonance then is the clear sounding quality which helps the audience to understand you. So again, somebody could be loud, they could project and have a very loud voice, but if their voice is not resonant, that if their voice is flat, then the message will not be delivered as clearly. So resonance is that very crisp kind of sound when you use those spaces in your breathing cavity to create space for the sound to amplify. And because it's all about airflow, posture is very important, so that you have space for the air to move as it should and where it should. So if you are crouched down, or if you think about you stand up straight and then you bend straight over to touch your toes, it's not as easy to speak then, and your voice won't be as audible because your entire respiratory system or your vocal system is kind of crunched up together rather than having space for the air to flow freely. And because the voice system is made up of muscles, so your vocal cords, those are muscles. Your diaphragm, those are muscles. Because it's made up of muscles, it's very important to treat it like any other muscle. So you have to stretch it. You have to, and you'll do this through vocal exercises. If you're a singer and actor, you have to do vocal exercises every day in order to train your voice and train your lungs to be able to hold more air, so that you can push more sound and push louder sound, so you'll be able to project. And another part of exercising, a very important part of exercising any muscle, is warming up. So this is why singers will warm up their voices before they sing, so that they will release any tension that they're holding. Their muscles will become looser so that they can hold more air. They can hold out all those beautiful long notes. They can hold on to their diaphragm to push sound louder so that they won't be singing to themselves and that kind of thing. So it's very important to warm up your voice also, so that you don't injure these muscles. So the same reason you'd warm up for physical exercise, the same reason you'd warm up your voice, so that you don't hurt your throat. And if you think about any time that you lost your voice, is because you put pressure, you basically strained or sprained your voice box. You sprain those muscles. But if we instead put the emphasis on the diaphragm and we speak from our diaphragm instead of shouting from our throats, then that is how you're able to preserve those muscles. So warming up and practicing with the voice is very important, and just as important as if you were to use your physical muscles, your legs, your arms, and all that jazz. So that now we understand how the voice works, we are going to question, how are the actor's tools used in a performance? Now, the long and short of it, as I said earlier, is that the mind combines the body and voice to deliver messages effectively and create appropriate portrayals for characters. So we are going to look at Johnny Depp performing 3 different roles, and we're going to just think about how he uses his voice and his body to. He is one person, but he has created 3 very, very different characters using different aspects of voice and different aspects of body. So we're going to look at a clip from Alice in Wonderland, going to look at a clip from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and a clip from Pirates of the Caribbean. So we're looking at how he's walking, how he's talking, and the different accents and all the things that we just spoke about, and how they apply to his performance.
Things that begin with the letter M. Have you any idea why a raven is like a writing desk?
Down with bloody big head.
What?
Down with the bloody big head being the Red Queen.
Come, we simply must commence with the slaying and such. Therefore, it is high time to forget, or forgive, whichever comes first, or is in any case, most convenient. I'm waiting.
It's ticking again.
All this talk of blood and slaying has put me off my tea.
Well, the entire world is falling to ruin. Poor Chester's off his tea.
What happened that day was not my fault.
Ooh, dear.
You're an out on them to save your own skin, you godler Scottish pilgering, shookum juggling, slurking your full. Barlow more
Thank you. Ooh, meow.
I'm fine.
What's wrong with you, Tarrant? You used to be the life of the party. You used to do the best futterwhack and then all wits end.
Futter what?
Fucking.
It's a dance.
Only for just day, when the White Queen once again wears the crown. On that day, I shall futterwhack him vigorously.
You mean that's it?
Do you even know what it is?
It's gum.
Yeah. It's a stick of the most amazing and sensational gum in the whole universe. Know why? Know why? This gum is a full 3-course dinner all by itself.
Why would anyone want that?
It will be the end of all kitchen and all cooking. Just a little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum, and that is all you will ever need at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This piece of gum happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie.
It sounds great.
It sounds weird. Sounds like my kind of gum.
I'd rather you didn't. There's still one or two things that are a little...
I'm the world record holder in chewing gum. I'm not afraid of anything.
Why is the rum always gone? Oh. That's why.
As you were, gents.
Time's run out, Jack.
So as you can see from the 3 videos, he used his voice and his body in very different ways to bring forward the characters in different types of portrayals. So particularly in that last clip, we could see that he didn't use his voice very much in that clip, in that segment of the film, but through his movements, we can tell that he is a drunkard, a bit of a crazy guy, that kind of thing. I guess in all 3 of them, he was crazy, but 3 different types of crazy. In the second one, he was much more youthful and vibrant and uppity than in Alice in Wonderland. Also, you see in the Alice in Wonderland clip, he actually switched accents. So at one point in time, it was sort of a British accent, and then he switched to sort of a kind of Scottish accent. Throughout the other 2, it was more American, and he is American, I believe, so he's able to take on different accents. and also change his voice to suit whatever the mood, to make it comical, to 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 make it scary, to make himself look like a drunkard, and so on and so forth. And of course, his body language has a lot to do with that. So the way that he walks, the way that he presents himself, his facial expressions in particular. So these were just a few examples for us to see how the body and voice come together to create portrayals, to create messages for the audience. So, just to wrap up, of course, you have your quiz to complete before next week, and that is just about it. If you have any questions, if there's not anything that is not clear at all, just make sure to contact me. Feel free to ask me any questions that you want to ask, and I will answer them as quickly as possible, which is usually within the hour. So yeah, give yourself some time to complete your quiz before next week. And that is all for today. Thank you for paying attention, ladies. Bye bye.